question for today is who among you gives a crap about high resolution audio? However you want to define it for now. DSD, PCM, whatever. Surround sound. Who cares? Are there enough of you out there? I sometimes wonder. I wonder a lot, actually. Every time someone's trying to convince me that it's a happening thing, I wonder. But there are groups. Let's just talk about the participants in this play, this little drama of ours, right? So the first group are the music lovers, the consumers of music. Do they care? Do enough of them care about high res? Because this high res thing has been going on for over 20 years, and still it's just sort of lurking. It's lurking in the background, right? It's not in the forefront, right? It's talked about, but rarely heard. So first we have the consumers and the music lovers. The next group are the musicians themselves. Do they care? When they have their music recorded, would they prefer it to be in high res? My experience of talking to musicians, the answer is no. I would say they're not all, but most of them are clueless. And the ones that know, I don't think they would demand that their music be recorded in high res. It just doesn't rate that high on their radar, right? It's just, when they're making a record, they're thinking about the music, they're thinking about their performance, they're thinking about the arrangements, but how the quality of the sound itself is not high on their priority list of what to do today when they're making a record, right? Obviously, that's not true for all. I'm just saying most musicians doesn't mean that much, being in high res or not. So then the next group on this list are recording engineers, mix engineers, mastering engineers. They're probably more enthusiastic about it, right? They're back there twirling knobs, looking at meters. They're at workstations. They would probably have a greater appreciation for high res than the other people in this story, but maybe not, you know. But some engineers definitely feel that the bit rate is more important than the sampling rate. That a 24-bit recording is superior to a 16-bit recording, and that's where the action is. That's where they put their mojo. That's where they care, right? Okay, so we got the engineers in there voicing their opinion about, does high res matter? Is it a big deal? Yes, some say, right? I would say, but the proof of the pudding is that when you talk to mastering engineers, as I do, and I say, so what do they get? What are you getting in file? When I talk to mastering engineers, what are they getting to do their mastering jobs? It comes in at 48, 24, or 44, 124. Some come in at 88, 24. Some at 96, 24. 192 is probably relatively rare. So it comes in dribs and drabs. For the most part, most music is down there at the bottom of the high-res pile, 44.1 24-bit or 48 24-bit. Not exactly high-res. I'm sorry for the diversion. But anyway, so we got the engineers chiming in. Then the next group are the record companies themselves, or record labels, or whatever they're called in the 21st century. Do they care? I would say no, they don't care. It's not, again, on their must-do list of things to do when they're making records. If it's easy, if it's not costing them anything, sure, we'll make it in higher res. But most of the time, not. So then there's the streaming companies, like the high-res streaming companies like Tidal and Qobuz. They probably care a lot because that differentiates themselves from, let's say, Spotify, for example, which doesn't do high res. Amazon has just started, but again, it's sort of bottom rung high res. I keep meaning to do some high res Amazon to check it out, and I will at some point soon, I hope. But anyway, circling back to the premise of this, who cares about high-res audio? It's been going on, in the late 90s, I was going to press events and hearing about DVD audio and SACD, and they kept saying it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, and it never really took off because the record companies themselves were so half-assed in their approach to recording in high-res that nobody really noticed, right? One of my best stories, talk about not noticing. The Rolling Stones, of all bands, who would guess that they would be a champion of high res? Because their recordings are not that great. But anyway, one of their labels, Abco, decided to do all of the early Rolling Stones titles from like 1964 to 1970 in high res on SACD. But they had this fascinating approach. What they did is the packaging itself did not say SACD on the outside. When you bought the disc and you looked inside, it would say, this is an SACD, it sounds better, blah, blah, blah. And the beauty of the Rolling Stones SACD experiment was that they stopped making CDs. This is, I think, in 2003. So the CDs were deleted from their catalog. They only offered SACDs of all of their music from 1964 to 1970. And guess what? They sold hundreds of thousands, probably millions of SACDs because that's all there was. And the people who were buying them were mostly not audiophiles. Yeah, okay, it's SACD, whatever. But the audiophiles out there who had SACD players were like, wow, this is really good. But you'll note that the Rolling Stones were still sort of making new music at that time. They didn't make new music in DSD or SACD. They let their old analog recordings be converted to, quote, high-res SACD. It's interesting that no other band ever made that kind of commitment. There were lots of Bob Dylan SACDs, but the CD titles still existed. And some of his newer, Bob Dylan's then newer music came out on SACD. That was pretty cool. I mean, and some people have embraced it, like Steve Wilson with Porcupine Tree, and he does reissues, remixes in high res. But it's in dribs and drabs. There's so little, the average person would never know that high res exists. It's off the radar. It's a non-starter. Then, if we talked about it, it's a co-conspirator, surround sound. And when I'm talking about surround sound, I mean in the context of making audio-only surround sound recordings. No video part to it, right? Not like watching a movie in surround. No, I mean audio with no picture. There was a Tom Petty record, what was it called? I'll put it up on the screen right now, that came out in, was it? No, I think it was actually just in high res. Again, dribs and drabs, little sticking the toe in there in the high res stream. Is this happening? I don't know. Yes, no. You know, Beck made a great surround sound SACD sea change. I think it also came out as PCM. But anyway, yes, again and again and again, I can point to specific examples. But you didn't see Beck saying, I dig this. I'm going to make all of my recordings available that way and all my new stuff. No. And why would he not do that? Because no one cares, or let's say, not enough people care. But what do you think? Do you care? And this is, again, a poll, so leave your responses in the comments below. And if you're a consumer, say you're a consumer. If you're a musician, say you're a musician. If you're an engineer, say you're an engineer, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, let's see what the reaction is, at least of Audiophiliac Daily Show viewers. How do you guys feel about high res? Oh, and I almost forgot to mention MQA. That's part of the whole high res story. Curiously, here we are, was it like 4 or 5 years into the MQA saga, and basically the only place that you can hear MQA is on Tidal. And if it's such a great idea, why didn't Spotify jump on MQA or other? Where is it? Show me more. Is it a happening thing? I did ask Tidal to tell me once how many subscribers are listening in MQA, if they had any stats on that. They weren't forthcoming with any. So maybe they weren't because they didn't want to, or maybe the number wasn't all that impressive. But at least it's still there. That says something that Tidal hasn't, cast off MQA. I think we're good. My name is Steve Guttenberg. This is very, very much the Audiophiliac Daily Show. If you dig it, please, I urge you strongly, subscribe. Hit that button right down there. When you do, hit hit the bell so you'll be notified every time there's an incredible new episode. If you like these things, please subscribe. I already did that part. Give them a thumbs up. If you think they're give them a thumbs down. Share them on social media, Twitter, Facebook, whatever. You can follow me on Twitter at AudiophiliacMan. You can check me out on Instagram at steve.guttenberg. Best of all, always best of all, check out my Patreon at patreon.com/audiophiliac. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I really do hope to see you back here again very, very soon. Bye-bye.